AIOps Evolution Weekly.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Sean McDermott to the AIOps Evolution podcast. This season, we are focused primarily on vendors and the technologies in the marketplace. Today, I want to welcome CloudFabrix to the podcast. And with us are two members of the CloudFabrix team, Bhaskar Krishnamsetty, who is the Chief Product Officer and co-founder of CloudFabrix, and Tejo Prayaga, who is the Senior Director of Product Management. Welcome, Taijos and Bhaskar.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sean. Pleasure is ours.
Good. So I don't really like reading bios, so I will let you guys speak for yourself. So give the audience a quick rundown on who you are and where you come from. So Bhaskar, we'll start with you.
Good. Absolutely, Sean. Again, thanks for having us. My name is Bhaskar Krishnamsetty. As Sean said, I'm one of the co-founders and Chief Product Officer at CloudFabrix. Well, I started my career 25 years ago as a software engineer. Then I switched on to led several teams in enterprise architecture, software engineering, product management, and product marketing. And if I split my career exactly into the half in the corporate world, half in the startup world. So even when I was in corporate world, I was always drawn to emerging technologies, how you can apply those, to help either end customers or the IT users, right? So coming to my startup journey, actually, I want to share my team, co-founding team and core engineering team. The reason this is our fourth technology startup together, and the DNA of us is primarily engineering driven, and building enterprise scale, enterprise grade platforms to leverage emerging technologies as well as automation. So if just a quick background we did the same for the network configuration automation, and in second startup we did in security compliance, and the last one we did it for virtual infrastructure and cloud infrastructure provisioning and automation. Probably most of you might be familiar, Cisco UCS Director, that was the our product which does unified infrastructure provisioning and management. Now coming to CloudFabrix in March 2015, we wanted to so far we did apply automation and analytics technologies to a domain, right? So now we thought, we wanted to apply this holistically for the full application stack. That is the vision we started with, right? So full stack analytics for a given outcome, okay? Of course, there are several names thrown, ITOA plus finally, I think it settled down to AIOps. So thus we are one of the AIOps platform and solution providers.
Awesome. That's quite a pedigree. A bunch of startups out there, including acquired by Cisco. So congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Tejo, tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah. Hi. My name is Tejo Prayaga. I lead the product management for our AIOps solutions here. And I joined the company almost at the beginning of the founding of the company. And prior to this, right, I was doing a product management for the Cisco UCS Director product, where we were doing infrastructure automation, private cloud provisioning and automation. And even today, that's like a very successful product, right? And I had a large stint at Cisco and did different BUs and different products, primarily in the channel product management. I did hardware product management with the Cisco switching. And prior to that, I was working at another startup. It's called Topspin Communications, which Cisco acquired way back then. And that's how I joined Cisco. So even my career, I have been doing multiple different roles, technical leadership, software engineering, and now product management and marketing. And so far, it's going great.
Excellent. Well, that's awesome. So what I wanted to do, the format of this podcast really is to talk about CloudFabrix and what your product does and some of your key differentiators and how people should be thinking about deploying AIOps with CloudFabrix. But before we get into that, Bhaskar, I'd love to kind of get your thoughts, right? I mean, as a guy who's been in automation space for a long time, I too have been, been doing a lot of. I founded a company called revolved back in the day, mid 2000s, and we sold that to BMC. So I've got automation in my DNA too.
Perfect.
So talk a little bit about AIOps as it's emerged over the last few years with the found. You guys are you're new, right? I mean, 2015, you're a new guy on the block. So bringing in a lot of kind of new thinking and not really tethered to any kind of legacy platforms. So talk to us about AIOps as you see it. What kind of got us here today and what led to this?
Absolutely. I think the current state of AIOps, it's much better when it's compared to 18 months to 2 years back, right? So when we used to pitch our AIOps platform and solution, the dialogue used to be around what is AIOps and what are the benefits of AIOps. But thanks to firms like yours and Gartner's, you educated IT leaders enough. Now the dialogue has shifted, right? Everybody understands what AIOps is, what are the benefits. Now they're all interested in how do we get there, right? So I think, frankly speaking, there was some hands burnt with AIOps 1.0 kind of platforms, because the nature of AIOps is you need to bring everything together. There are very high touch, right? So I think the discussion now is the frictionless is the keyword I would use. How easy we can implement AIOps. So our current discussions are around that. And the one more discussion point, honestly, is this vendor clarity and a vendor confusion, right? We being one of the domain agnostic vendors sitting on top of AIOps ecosystem and pulling data from all these sources and providing consolidated intelligence. But now a lot of the discussions, because other AIOps ecosystem vendors, whether it's ITOM, ITSM, ITIM vendors, they not only provide APM and ITSM, also want to offer AIOps, right? So now whenever we go to prospects and customers, they say, hey, how are you guys different, right? So that is also, which is a good development, more, crowded, and that means more demand is there. But I think it's much better. As I said, that as a vendor, it is our responsibility to acknowledge that frictionless part, right? When we say frictionless, there are two aspects of it. One is technically frictionless and culturally, right? So when we say technically, that is where I think a lot of time, they're taking longer time to get the time to value and the data integrations and data plumbing. That's where we see a lot of them struggling. So that's where we need to provide a lot of automation and a lot of help there. And from a culturally, if you look at Sean, there is no dedicated group or anything we see. I mean, because like DevOps, right? There is a very defined group and all. Here, sometimes it's a top-down initiative, starting with CXOs and all, which is usually good because the rest of the groups align. But sometimes it is IT ops, sometimes it's NOC ops, sometimes it is DevOps teams. So there is no clear-cut defined buying center and all, right? So that's what one of the things that I observe as well. So besides that, use cases point of view, we all know the beachhead use cases, right? Anomaly detection, alert noise reduction, root cause analysis. So they are the still key use cases, but we are seeing some evolving use cases, right? Especially in cloud native world, microservices and DevOps world. Now there is a lot of logging, but not proper monitoring and all. How you can help them both during the CI/CD pipeline itself. How you can help dev and QA teams with a lot of these features and logs and operational data. And one more use case we are really seeing actually that's emerging a lot, especially from our telecom and service providers, are edge analytics, right? Especially with the 5G and all, they edge to core to cloud. How do we bring AIOps to the edge? That is one of the emerging use case. And one more last use case I will tell, how do you apply NLP, natural language processing, to a lot of your unstructured and semi-structured data that is in logs, incidents, or change requests, right? How you can help them. So this is how, this is good. Some of these use cases are evolving, right? So overall, I think it is going in the right direction. As I said, as a vendor, it's our responsibility to make their journey as frictionless, as seamless as possible.
Yeah, I think your use cases are pretty much what we're hearing, right? And when we work with our clients on AIOps, and we talk, the use case is going to be based on anything that's generating a lot of data, right? So incident and alert management is pretty much ground zero. And I think you're right. What we're seeing is a lot of discussion on the value proposition of AIOps is kind of talked out. And we even, we have a weekly AIOps Evolution broadcast we do every week. And it's, it's kind of hard on those weekly broadcasts to kind of talk about some things that we feel like we talk about all the time, right? And we don't want to rehash things. We're seeing it too, where a lot of customers right now are now in the, okay, we're starting to believe the story, right? And this was kind of my experience back in mid 2000s when we were doing automation and runbook automation. That was our platform, and training people, educating people on it and getting them to believe we could actually do what we said, because it had been a promise for so long. And I think that we're now getting into this phase where people are starting to try it out. Say, okay, this is now worth my time to kind of try out and see if we can throw a use case or two at AIOps and see what happens, right? And we're definitely seeing that. So talk a little. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. That trust factor, what I call this famous quote, trust but verify, right? So there is a little bit of hesitancy, but yeah, you're right.
So let's talk about, before we kind of get into CloudFabrix, which I'm excited to talk to you guys about, what is, where do you see this going over the next, 3 years, right? You shortened the timeline to 18 to 24 months. So let's only look out 3 years. Where do you see this going? And hit on this natural language processing too, because that's an interesting thing you just brought up.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, let me share the natural language processing one, because I'll give you an example, right? One of our largest financial organization, the use case is very interesting use case. They were using on-prem service now, and they customized the heck out of it, right? And there is so much knowledge, tribal knowledge in their notes or resolution notes or description and all. Now, ServiceNow, they came and said, hey, you have to move out to the SaaS version. So they're going to lose a lot of the customization fields and the text there. So they requested, hey, can you guys help us preserving this knowledge base, right? Metadata of all the old 10 years of change requests and incidents, and so that we can help for the future incident classification and resolution and all, and analysis and all, right? So that is where we applied. CloudFabrix offers our own NLP models, but we also offer integration with OpenAI or IBM Watson, right? So they have very good NLP engines as well. So customers should have that options of, providing either external NLP engines or our own NLP engines. But this is just one use case, right? So similarly, I would say there is so much lying in today's enterprise operational data. I think more and more NLP applying to those to wean these insights, especially to create a good knowledge base, because they have that. So far, the knowledge base has been very splintered around, right? So it's been spread out and all. So they want to preserve that. So you can apply NLP in those cases.
Yeah, the NLP thing really kind of caught my attention there, because I think that there is definitely a need in when you start aggregating lots of data together, right? You guys are building some very advanced models and algorithms to aggregate data and root cause and causation and things like that, and looking at patterns. But the data that shows up, the information that shows up to the operator still may have some very technical components to that. And applying natural language processing on top of that could make it kind of interesting that you're able to even make the results of your AI more human understandable.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Bhaskar. I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit here, and we're going to start talking more about CloudFabrix, which is why you guys are here in the first place. So, all right. So let's, Tejo, I'm going to shift over to you and let you kind of take the lead on this. But you've got your product CFX Dimensions. Love to hear about that. And you've also, from what I understand, you guys have also launched this thing, Robotic Data Automation, and a new site, roboticdata.ai. So I'd love to hear about that. So talk to me about CFX Dimensions and what you guys are doing there, and love to kind of understand some of the differentiators that you guys have in your platform.
Absolutely, yeah. So let me start with our key products in our AIOps portfolio, and I'm going to talk about three of them. First one is robotic data automation. The second one is operations intelligence and analytics, which is our core AIOps platform. And the third one is observability in a box, and I'll walk through each one of these. So robotic data automation. This is our data ops automation platform. And if you understand the genesis of this, why we actually built this product, right? Whenever we go to any enterprise customer and talk about AIOps, they have difficulty bringing their existing data and the systems into an AIOps methodology. And this is where the RDA product completely automates your data preparation and integration activities using data pipelines and bots. And this RDA will also give you data-driven automation, which is an essential component of AIOps. So RDA acts like a foundation for all of our AIOps offerings, providing this data-driven automation and data ops automation. The second product is operations intelligence and analytics. Again, this is our core AIOps offering, addressing some of the use cases around alert noise reduction, incident MTTR reduction, and predictive analytics. And the third one is observability in a box. And here again, I want to give some context on what this product is. When we go to enterprise customers, there are a lot of monitoring tools out there, but there are still data visibility gaps. Right? And we want to fill those visibility gaps when we are talking about AIOps. You need to have data to begin with, and this observability in a box is filling those data visibility gaps. And the second use case that we are seeing with observability in a box is customers want to get more visibility, especially in edge environments. And when we talk to telco service provider customers, they need some of this edge analytics and embedded analytics also. And that's where we are positioning this observability in a box. Again, we are not trying to be a monitoring tool here, but trying to fill that visibility gaps, which is an essential part in AIOps. And all of these products, actually, we have built on the CFX Dimensions platform, which is built with modern microservices-based architecture, right? So that's giving us the flexibility to either be deployed on an edge environment, on-prem, or cloud. And most of our customers, let's say if we talk about defense contractors or healthcare insurance customers, they have deployed on-prem. But our web scale customers, they have deployed on public clouds. So our architecture is giving us that flexibility to be deployed anywhere, and it's also SaaS ready.
Yeah, that's an interesting way you guys are doing it, because there seems to be a lot of companies that are either doing, kind of pure on platform. On-prem, kind of your legacy code versus other companies that are doing SaaS. So getting back to robotic data automation, so let's talk about this for a little bit. Walk us through, the automation of data preparation. Like, how does that actually work? And you talk about pipelines, do you automate the connection into the data source? Do you automate the mapping of data fields? Like, what exactly is happening here with that?
Absolutely. It's all of that, actually. And let me walk through a typical scenario and the flow, right? So RDA, the first thing is it provides you bots-based automation with low-code data pipelines, right? So we have built more than 500 bots in our bot library in 20 categories, right? So let's say in AIOps, typically you start with integrating with the data source. You ingest the data. Now you need to do some filtering of the data. You may need to do some data transformation. You may need to enrich the data by bringing data from other sources. You may need to do some AI ML analytics, right? And you may need to trigger some automations in some third-party tools. You may need to go and update some dashboards. So all of these activities, right, data-driven activities, you can completely do with bots. And one example I can give you, right? So let's say if you want to get data from AWS, without these bots, you would have to understand AWS API, what are the data constructs, the data models, and the schema, right? But with our bots, it's just completely, it's just using the bot. You don't need to know any of those nuances, right? You don't need to understand the API. So we are completely making it very easy to perform all of these data ingestions and integrations and all the data prep and integration activities. And the data pipelines themselves are implemented in low code. So what this means, you don't need to be a data scientist. You don't need to be a programming expert to implement these pipelines. These are implemented completely in a markup language, which just looks like natural language. So that's why RDA has a very broad appeal to any type of IT generalist, IT enthusiast, so that the skill set requirement is completely eliminated. You don't need all of the data science skills in your team to use RDA.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. So on this weekly broadcast that we do, and you can actually check it out on AIOpsevolution.com, we talk a lot about the success of AI ops and AI in general requiring teams of people, right? Data scientists and process engineers and AI model, and translators who translate business requirements into, the technical, output of these models. And I've been pretty much stating that that's a problem, right? Because these teams require highly skilled people that may and actually don't really exist today. Surely, people are going to get more trained in this going forward. But a lot of them are going to get sucked up into the larger, enterprises who can afford to pay these people, and ultimately, who's going to be left behind are a lot of the mid-sized enterprises who have lots of requirements for data and AI and data processing, and they're not going to have access to the talent. So we talked a little bit last week, I think, about some work being done up in Cornell, where they're looking at really taking AI at a very lower, removing the skill of AI and really looking at retraining business people who understand the context of the organization, the context of the business, the context of the data, and giving them, the ability to start, working in AI and building models and things like that without having to be an expert in AI. So that's a really interesting thing. So the robotic data automation, so this robotic data.ai, is this is it a product for you guys? Is it a community, or is it both?
Yeah, it's right now it's both. What we are doing with RDA is it's actually working as a foundation for all of our offerings. It's embedded into each of the products that I talked about. And we are also building a community of developers and ecosystem partners who are able to contribute bots to our bot library.
Okay, excellent. So the operational intelligence and analytics, that's your core platform, right? That's where you guys started. Can you go into a little bit more detail on that and the use cases that you guys have for that? And then we can touch on the observability in the box, because I think that's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I want to highlight few things in the operations intelligence. Right? So we have a lot of list of features, but I will highlight few areas where in most cases enterprises struggle in those areas. So the first one is contextualization of data. Right? As we get data from multiple different domains, whether it's applications, infrastructure, log systems, cloud systems, we get data from all of these areas, and we are able to enrich and enhance the quality of this data automatically so that you don't have to depend on a CMDB, right? Or you don't have to do these manual data ingestions, which most of the other implementations we see that there is a dependency on these manual data feeds. And that's not going to scale if you do that. We actually completely automate the data contextualization and enrichment process using our own asset intelligence and own discovery process. So that's the first one.
So do you guys ever have the issue of going to customers and say, hey, look, we've already got discovery going, so we're using ServiceNow and their discovery engine, populating the CMDB. So why deploy another discovery tool to create more, more traffic on the network? So do you come across that? And if so, like, what's the response?
Sean, let me take that. Definitely. We do have that thing. When there is already a good discovery and good CMDB in place, we will take input from that, right? But what we are finding out in majority of the enterprise environments, those CMDBs are incomplete to the most part, right? So that's why we started our own asset discovery and intelligence. But to your point, if it's already there, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Okay, if there's a pristine data, we have a way of analyzing also whether what they have is true or not by verifying it, right? So that's why we created this asset discovery and intelligence product.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Having real life experience, even recently with some of our customers who have CMDBs, they tend to look more like asset databases than what we would think of as a true CMDB with dependencies and service description. So it makes it very hard. We've also found that a fair number of these CMDB data is just absent, right? Even simple things like vendor names are not in there, right? So that becomes very difficult to do anything with when you're integrating into a CMDB. You're pulling in the fields, you're mapping to that data, and then you pull it all back, and most of the fields are empty. So there's nothing to filter on. So we're finding that too. Like we're finding that a lot of these CMDBs are really, and these are customers using ServiceNow, that they are really just essentially databases of assets, of which some of the information is robust and some is very lacking. So if you're trying to use that, and what I could understand why you guys are doing this, because now you can control the discovery process, you can control what information you're getting, you can control the dependency mapping and things like that, which would make all your AI models much more robust than relying on somebody else. So it makes sense. Do you get a lot of customers that are cool with that and say, hey, yeah, we kind of know that, so let's just run your discovery?
Yes. I mean, actually, some cases, they said the same thing, exactly what you said. Oh, we already got it. And then we ran what we call some discovery diff analysis kind of a thing. Then we have shown some of the instances that were not even there and some of the missing fields. Then they say, oh, okay. Then they asked us, hey, not only that, can you also sync our CMDB for our other applications that are depending on CMDB, right? So most of the cases that is right, but there are very few cases where they have a good CMDBs and discovery.
Gotcha. Tejo, I didn't mean to take you off track there, so continue on.
No worries, it's all good, yeah. So the second one I want to talk about is correlation recommendations, right? So when you implement AIOps, you're going to have a lot of these alerts and events. So instead of handcrafting these correlations manually or writing your regular expressions or rules, what we do is using our AI ML techniques and unsupervised ML techniques, we are providing these optimal correlation recommendations to the customer so that they don't have to handcraft these policies, they don't have to depend on the tribal knowledge, right? So this way, they are able to cut down the observation times. We are even able to take the historical data, and at the beginning of the AIOps implementation itself, they get a set of recommendations to say, hey, Mr. Customer, these are the optimal recommendations in your environment. If you correlate this way, this is the kind of noise reduction you're going to get.
Excellent.
Right. So, and to add to that, we also provide some advanced correlation controls, especially for large enterprise environments. If they want to correlate based on a horizontal stack or a vertical full stack, if they want to do it based on a certain layer or an attribute, or if they want to do time windowing of the correlations, we provide these advanced controls. Right? So we were working with one of the customers, and what they said is, hey, our production environment behaves differently versus dev UAT, and we want to correlate differently, and we were able to address that. And some other customers said that we have a dedicated storage team, so we want to correlate all the storage alerts in a different way, and we have a network infrastructure and systems team is different. We want to do it in a different way. So we are able to address all of these different scenarios by providing these advanced correlation controls.
Excellent. So let's talk about observability in the box. What's the origin of that? You talk about you don't necessarily want to be an observability platform, but you want to fill in some gaps. So talk about the origin of observability in the box.
Yeah. So when we talk to enterprise customers, they have all of these monitoring tools, but still they have these visibility gaps, especially for some of these cloud native workloads or some of the edge workloads and tier 2 environments. Right? So tier 1, it's mostly taken care of. But when we talk about tier 2 non-prod, staging, dev test, UAT, these are generally ignored. They may not have full visibility into these environments. That's when the customer asks, hey, can you fill the gaps in the performance data that we have? And that's why we designed this observability in a box. The key differentiation here is it provides a unified observability. What this means is you're getting your metrics, events and logs, traces, all of these key data sets in one unified solution. Right? And this is completely based on open source and open telemetry architecture. And if you see one of the emerging trends within the enterprise, they want to adopt more and more open instrumentation. And even Gartner is talking about this. Right? So that's where our product is based on this open source architecture. So if you have Telegraph agents, Prometheus agents, if you have Elasticsearch Beat modules, or Jaeger Open Telemetry, you will be able to ingest all of the data into our platform. And on top of that, what we are doing is we are adding our own innovations, especially with the Edge AI. Right? As we collect the data, we are training our AI/ML models. We are able to establish a baseline. We identify anomalies. We provide some of these predictive insights. Right? So that way, in the unified solution, you're also getting the Edge AI implemented. And some of the new use cases that we are seeing, especially in the service provider and telco environments, they want embedded observability. So some of our infrastructure partners, they are embedding this observability in a box in the management layer of an infrastructure stack so that they can do call home and remote monitoring capabilities. And in the same way, some of our MSP customers, they are deploying this observability in a box in some of their remote customer sites and getting the data.
Excellent. That's interesting stuff. So, so I think we're getting pretty close on time here. Is there anything that you guys wanted to cover that we haven't covered so far?
Yes, certainly. So I just want to double click on RDA a little bit, Sean, and want to talk some of the benefits that our customers are seeing. So
Sure.
RDA, we think it's actually a game changer in AIOps. Right? The reason I say that is with RDA, we are able to simplify and accelerate AIOps implementations altogether. Right? And our customers are able to address a lot more use cases with RDA. And they are realizing faster ROI with RDA. And RDA itself is gaining a lot of traction and momentum within our service partners and consulting partners. Now they want to take RDA. They are able to do POCs very easily, faster POCs. Instead of taking 6 months, they are able to do it in 6 weeks. And even some of our AIOps partners, they want to actually embed RDA in their portfolio so that they can have some of these data ops automation capabilities.
To add to Tejo's point, right? So our vision is, if you look at Sean, at macro level, AIOps is transforming tools-driven IT to analytics-driven IT with core use cases and all. But the true promise of AIOps is when you can help IT operators with their day-to-day functions at micro level, right? Where whatever Tejo said, those use cases quickly, they can put these pipelines together and use, right? So for the IT automation. So that's how RDA will help you start small to do some of the automation at micro level and grow paths to the full-fledged AIOps. And the second one, what we are seeing is the hyper automation, right? I don't want to throw one more buzzword, but end-to-end automation, right? So Sean, you've been in the block and you know about automation, task automation, workflow automation, and various automations are there. But recently with RPA, which is automating user actions, to accomplish this end-to-end automations, two pieces missing. One is the data automation. The other one is the decision-making automation, right? So AIOps is kind of AIML models addressing the decision-making automation to the most part. But with RDA, it's really filling the data automation part. So from RPA, user actions, RDA, data automation, and then AIOps for decision making, and the last mile automation using Chef, Puppet, Ansible. Now you can truly achieve this end-to-end automation or hyper automation, what everybody is aspiring to.
Yeah, makes sense. So with regards to RDA, do you and the bots that you guys have created, is it available that people can write their own bots and submit them into the community and kind of crowdsource to accelerate the development of more diverse sets of bots for the data automation?
Yes, that's our vision, Sean. As I said, we already created 500, us and some of our partners. Mm-hmm. We are certifying them, and our vision is to really open this up to full community so that this whole bot library will evolve. So we are in that process of providing this whole certification and expanding the bot ecosystem.
That's great. Well, this has been awesome. This has been a really interesting conversation, and congratulations to you guys for everything you've accomplished in the last 6 years. I know very well how hard it is to start a software company. So I again thank you for joining us. If you want to check out CloudFabrix some more, you can go to www.cloudfabrix, that's cloud with Fabrix.com, and check them out some more. And from there, I think we'll close this session out. Bhaskar, Tejo, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to talking to you. So this has been a great conversation, and as we look into the future of educating, the market on AIOps and what we're trying to do, I'd absolutely love to keep in touch and have you guys on again and talk about some more interesting things.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. Thank you very much for this opportunity. We also enjoyed this discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, guys. And this is the end of our episode, so we'll sign off from here. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And you can check out more episodes of AIOps Evolution podcast at www.aiopsevolution.com. And I'm your host, Sean McDermott, signing off. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation about AIOps and the future of IT operations. Interested in a deeper dive on these topics? Check out our resources available at AIOpsevolution.com. And remember to subscribe to get the latest episode.